Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? On this episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have David Pere, who is, military to millionaire. I botched that right at the beginning.
The man, the myth, the legend here.
Which is funny because I followed you for quite a while. I mean, we were in the original mastermind that Dan and I started with together. Now we're in Go Abundance together. And I get stage fright, I guess, whenever I launch these things, and I forget what people do right away. But you have your hands in all sorts of things, professional investor. You have a community that you've built out. You're just like I would say probably the highest, what's the right word? The highest
fame,
sort of fame.
The clout. He's got the most clout and the biggest beard. He does. Dave, you got a nice beard.
Definitely has the biggest beard. So, yeah. So, David, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks for having me, Mike. Dan,
you've kind of done a ton of stuff over the years. So I think that a great place to start for people who might not know who you are, kind of what's your background, what kind of stuff you've worked on in the past, and sort of where you're headed now, especially as the market started to turn. We had some interesting conversations before we got into this, so we'd love to hear all that as well.
Yeah, I'm a hodgepodge dude. So I joined the military in 2008, joined the Marine Corps, didn't have any idea what I wanted to do with my life, and grew up in Arkansas, so I wanted to get out of Arkansas. Traveled the world a little bit. 2015, I was still in the military and realized I had no money to my name. And someone handed me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad on on an audio CD, right? They were like, here, listen to this while you drive. So I did. And so that kind of started the wheels turning. And like 4 or 5 months later, just so happened, like stars kind of aligned. Like my apartment lease came up and I came into enough money for a down payment. And I house hacked a duplex. And so, that was kind of the catalyst. I was like, oh, wow, this works. And then I moved out and it was cash flowing just enough to be kind of content with it. And it was proof of concept. I was hooked on real estate. But as a young enlisted Marine with no actual cash or savings or net worth, it's not like I could just go buy a bunch of real estate. So my entire origin story is like super high leverage, creative financing, and just like there's got to be some way to make this thing work. How do we make this thing work? And just creativity and whatever, and like slow roll. So I've done a lot of really weird stuff. When people ask me, oh, what do you do in real estate? It's like, I buy and hold things. And they're like, well, yeah, what do you do? Like, you single family, fourplexes?
I buy shit.
Buy and hold. And I'm like, everything. And I'm like, what does it mean? Like, yeah, I'm like, I've got 1 to 4 units. I had a 10 unit. I had a 15, a 23, a 40 unit hotel, an RV park, pieces of some syndications. I don't know. If I can
chasing that return, you're just chasing ROIs, right?
I'll buy it.
Yeah, I like that.
If I can find a way to buy it.
Cool. So. Well, before we get too deep into this, I have a question because I was watching some of your content. What's up with the Missle silo? Do you own this? Did you help a friend? Like, that is fascinating to me. Okay.
That's not mine. But that's my buddy Hugh. He's my partner on the hotel, and he bought this thing and it is nuts, and he's turning it into an Airbnb. But yeah, it's a decommissioned Atlas missile silo in middle of nowhere, Kansas. That's like, it's like you go like 40 feet down and it's got like a living area, and then like below that another living area. They're going to turn into, I think, like a 3-2 like Airbnb, and then it's got off the bottom one there's a tunnel that shoots out, and that's where the actual missile silo is, and that goes 18 stories underground. And to date, we haven't actually been to the bottom.
That's creepy as shit.
It's all broken off, and there's not like a tie-off point
Dude.
to rappel
Okay.
down.
No,
and,
So
it's-
I always have to ask questions because we've had a couple other guests with some unique properties, and I always ask the question like, where does the poop go? If you're underground, you got to get it out of there, right?
So, first off, I should say that we have.
Of course you have.
a rifle
Why wouldn't you?
Inside of the silo. Yeah. So we actually posted that on TikTok, and it got taken down immediately. But then the other video of us drinking beer running around the silo is my most viewed TikTok video ever. So, actually, so the first time I went out there, we had nothing. We were just using the silo or the RV they had parked outside, but. We went out there and did like a weekend trip with a couple buddies, talk real estate, hang out in the silo, and just screw around. And they had their contractor go out there a few days prior, and they actually got a shower and a toilet set up, and they have a macerator pump or whatever that pumps everything back out. Yeah. So it functions. We were able to. It was like the thing. It was like
underground pooping. That is so cool.
That's
so. Yeah. And it's like, and it's great because it's like. Right now, all they literally have is like a crappy wall with like a shower curtain. So like you for both. So it's like, like one person's like taking a crap and like shower curtain, and the next guy's like right next door, like
oh my God.
Showering. And
you're it's
totally exposed. Other than that, like
I was gonna say that is actually really cool. I mean, just
really
from a destination, like, hey, I got to stay in a missile silo. That I thought that was super fascinating.
Yeah.
Like perfect.
And it's 67.5 degrees.
What does the financing for something on that look like?
It's great. Well, in his case, it looks like somebody has a lot of money and they pay cash.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably also depends on like if you have the missile with it or not with it too, depending on
Yeah, right. You could get some foreign interest and lend money on that in exchange for information on the missile.
To answer your question though, he and I we wrote an offer together for the one. There's another one that they made them in groups of 12, and he and I wrote an offer on one that was 20 miles away to have a neighboring one, but we got outbid. Now there's another style of, not to go way down the rabbit hole. There's another style of missile silo that actually had multiple different missiles that has various tunnels, and it's like a mile or two of tunnels underground that connected them all. And if I
that's
get my hands on one
fascinating. Like there's a market, like you got outbid on this thing. Like there's enough demand. Wow. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to start looking for those.
Yeah. What kind of price point, if we can share that? I'm just curious.
What he will, if you were to ask him the question, his answer would be under $1 million, because he can't, whatever ND he signed, like something that he can't disclose the exact amount. But the one we offered on was like 350, but it was in much worse shape. It's what's crazy about this is, and this is what's hilarious. So this one was built in like the Cold War era or whatever with Russia, and it was built, and I think the like current value of this construction project would have been like $13 million or something, right? So it's not a cheap project to build this thing. And I think it was like 2 years after the build that it takes like 14 or 15 minutes to launch said missile, and then Russia came out and was like, could beat it by a minute. So then they were like, well,
of course,
this is useless.
Oh my God.
Style missile.
Good to know.
Shut it down. So like,
just classic government it's waste and obsolescence. Oh my God, that's so crazy. Yeah,
the history behind these things is actually really funny. But anyway, we should probably, as fascinating and interesting as these things are.
Perfect. I love it. We're going to do a missile silo episode.
Introduction. He will go way down the rabbit hole, and it is hilarious. And he's got even more just crazy, weird investment things and stories. And
let's do it. I'm down.
That would actually be awesome. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hugh's a character. He's got like 4 like.
We're gonna bring your father-in-law, Mike. He would be all.
I know. Yeah. My father-in-law in another life. My father-in-law is an ex-plumber who now does like military contracts, like R&D stuff, and he's designed everything from like, just super basic, like custom packs and things like that, to like custom rifles for one-off stuff, to now he does like different sort of accessories and contraptions for like drones and like stealth warfare. And like when he was like building this thing to like catch drones like out of the sky and like doing all this sort of stuff. But he's like a total just like military geek.
Oh, yeah.
And as Dan put it, he never served either, which is fascinating,
cool.
but he knows everything about it. But I think, Dan, you said he talks more like a military guy than most military guys.
Super cool.
Totally. You're like, what did you do? 20, 25 years? Yeah. Come on. Nope. None. Not a single day.
He was a plumber.
He was a plumber.
25 years.
Yeah. Awesome dude though.
So yeah, but no, that's cool. So I mean, you're obviously making some interesting investments, but I mean your general stuff too. So like that's something that you put together through some of the connections that you had with those guys. And from what you're saying before, that's kind of been your superpower as well. Of a lot of the deals that you've done, as you were saying before we hopped on this show, were deals that you've been able to get into by connecting the A and B party and basically carving yourself a piece of it out in the middle. So like what other deals have you put together that are kind of like that?
Yeah, I've got a couple weird, bits and pieces. So the most recent one, I've got there's an RV park that I do almost nothing, but I actually, I enjoy the marketing side. So I run the Google My Business profile, and I did all the RV site, like getting it up on all the RV platforms, and pushed a bunch of reviews towards it and tweaked a bunch of things, and getting all the photos updated, all the online presence crap, which I think is actually, very valuable, but not a whole lot of work, and I enjoy it. So it doesn't feel like work. So basically the only thing other than that, which I enjoy, that I have done or will do on this property, is my buddy brought me this RV park. The numbers look really good. And he's like, I want to buy this. I found this. This is a great deal. But I need like $100,000 to make it happen. And I was like, I might know somebody. And then I went and asked my buddy, hey, you still looking to buy some stuff that looks kind of like this? Here's the deal. And he was like, yes, I am. And then I put them together. And ironically, I had kind of joked with one of them, like, hey, if I make this introduction, you're going to give me like, that 5% for finding someone. And he's like, yeah. And then we were all texting, and the other guy who I hadn't made the joke with was like, so we're doing
you're
45, 10 question mark. Yeah. And then the first guy was like, yeah, sounds good. And I'm like, oh,
I like a smiley face,
okay,
kissy
cool.
face.
Thanks, guys. Like, yeah. So I mean, and that just kind of goes to the character, right? Like they're both really good friends. One of them had been a private lender of mine for a long time, but before that, he'd just been a good friend. And the other one has been a friend for a long time, and he's actually the community manager for my mastermind group as well. So like, we've done deals together before. So like, it's not like they're just random people. And so, yeah, one guy brought the money, the other guy found the deal and operates the deal. And then the only thing that I really did other than the online presence is I put the two of them together, introduced them to my asset protection guy to form the LLC.
I mean, you say that's the only things you did, but those are pretty critical parts, right? That are difficult for people that are, especially if they're new investors, they do have a unique kind of property.
Yep.
Like being able to find, especially a lender for like an RV park, it isn't exactly simple, especially these days, but
totally,
you can find some people to do it. But like also too, I mean, we've kind of been down this rabbit hole where there's a newer investor that has a asset that's maybe like a slightly larger price point and things like that. And no lender will talk to them, but because we have a relationship with lenders, we can go and say like, hey, look, there's this deal. We have a friend, we'll vouch for them. And that can get a deal done for some people. And that is super, super valuable. So you definitely deserve to be compensated for that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There you
That's
go.
So cool.
I think
awesome.
I was at 15%.
So cool. Sweet. So yes, that's sweet. So like, what does your total like business life look like right now? Because I know you said you've bought a bunch of properties, you've done some wholesaling, you're doing these partnerships, you're shooting guns into a missile silo.
Living the dream.
I mean, yeah, you're living the dream pretty much.
Yeah, it kind of looks like if you were to just like get on a treadmill and then turn it all the way up. And then there were like people on both sides. You just like
That's what it feels like.
And you didn't really know why you were on the treadmill. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah, and that's kind of it's kind of like the perfect analogy, I think, for just entrepreneurship in general. Is like, I feel like I'm supposed to be on this treadmill, but I don't really know why I'm. I kind of joked the other day. I drove to Kansas City Monday afternoon to have like a early dinner and a drink with a friend, and then drove back, and that's like a 2 hour 45-minute drive from my house, and. A friend of mine and I was on the phone on the way up there. He's like, why are you driving all the way up there just to hang out and have like lunch, dinner for like an hour and drive back? And I was like, honestly, I mean, obviously I want to hang out and whatever, but it's like, I think part of it is just that I'm trying to like force myself to learn that I can take time out of the office to do this. Like, I'm so bad about like today, like my assistant's sick and there was really no reason. Like everything that I did today, including this podcast, realistically, would have been done from my laptop in my house. And yet I spent the entire day in the office 20 minutes from my house because I feel like I should come to work. So yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. It's like, I've got all these projects and things that I'm working on, and I'm really trying to figure out what the next real estate move is, because as we kind of mentioned, I sold my wholesaling company, and I'm moving out of kind of the crack house world. That's not as exciting as it was when when you first start investing, you're like, I don't have money. I need to leverage everything, and I need to buy C and D class stuff that cash flows like a king. Money, and you're like, I need to get rid of all that and buy stuff that is not a headache. So I'm in that stage, and I'm trying to liquidate some of those and either go. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try to move more into just LP positions. And really kind of go into like the raising money side of things and just kind of expound on the networking piece. Or if I'm actually, what I've really been trying to explore, and the reason that I went to Kansas City, because the people I met with were friends that are architects. I'm trying to explore the idea of getting into developing, and not like, I want to build a house, but like, what would it look like to build like a tower? Like something cool to like point at one day and be like, hey kid, like we built that, I don't know, just because it'd be, I'm like, what, like what part of real estate
I like that
could
like
make you excited? Saudi Arabia and be a part of like what was that like mega city thing that they're building? That's like, it's like 100 yards across.
That thing is crazy, right?
5 miles. It's unbelievable. And they're serious. They started building it.
I know.
I haven't decided yet if I love it or hate it. Yeah, they started. It's I feel like that's one of those things that's going to be like the iPhone, where it's like everybody who lives there just feels like they have to tell you it's the greatest thing in the world because they bought into it, even if they hate it. And you're like, wow, that city must be so great because you're stuck there. And so they're like,
that's what they call it, right?
Like people that live
here, like
it's like people that live in most major metros, right?
Totally. Like well, we have such a variety of food.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I was thinking about while I was stepping over people and poop the whole time.
Wow. Yeah. Just get us back on track here before we start talking about poop again. I love it. Trust me, I love it.
Sorry.
I was going to ask you, so what is your business? So what does it look like? So are you set up with your business such that everything is passive, or would you count it all as your horizontal / passive income? Or are you looking at, you have active and passive? What does it look like for you? Like what's work, what's not work?
On the real estate side right now, I'd say it's all passive. I'm not actively hunting for deals right now until I kind of figure out what the next piece is. And I have a property manager who handles everything. I would say, well, take that back. I have 2 30-minute calls every week just because my hotel / apartments that we bought has needed some help with stabilizing as we brought in some new management for the hotel. But aside from those 2 30-minute calls for the last like 2 months, awesome. I don't do anything. And I really don't do much on those calls either. I just kind of listen and occasionally point out things because I'm more of the like big idea guy
Right.
who says, hey, have we thought about this, this, and this for marketing? And then I shut up. Or like, hey, we could do some of this to bring in business, or some of this to bring in
Sure.
reviews. I'm not the
You're the
operations
visionary.
guy. I'm
Yep.
the, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's not a whole lot of reason for me to be on the call, because as they start pulling up spreadsheets and expenses and stuff, I go cross-eyed. So, you know, I just like literally half the call I'm on the other screen, like just kind
Other
of
visionary
while
stuff.
I'm like doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, I'm like, let me know if you need me. And they know it. Like, it's very open. I'm like, tell me when you need a problem solved. I'll pay attention. But yeah, other than that, I mean, my property manager runs most of my real estate stuff. And so then most of my focus goes towards the like brand and community side, and helping work towards the what's next, and the giving back, and the helping other people with, you know, what they're doing in real estate. As I've kind of paused my growth in real estate to figure out what's next.
Yeah. I want to talk about your community here, but I guess just really quick, going back to what you're saying before, where you've like delegated out a lot of the different things that you do to the point that you can just be in your visionary role. I do think a lot of entrepreneurs of various sizes, I mean, even like smaller entrepreneurs, right? They can benefit from having that similar sort of mindset, right? If that just like isn't them to be the implementer. So do you have any like tips or thoughts for people that sort of want to get to that position where they can just be purely visionary?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing would just be recognizing that the vast majority of people aren't actually visionary. And I'm not by no means am I saying that being a visionary is better than not being a visionary. In fact, I would say that there are a lot of times that I wake up and go, I wish that this was not me. Like my assistant sees me in here all the time stressing out about things, because I'm just like she's very much a doer, and she's not the integrator. So like I have this great idea, and if I could get to where it's like, here's the process, just do this, then she's got it. Like getting to that part, that's the part that I bang my head against the wall. And so like I'll sit in here with like, you know, a massive stack of like,
you do,
just like notes and ideas from like church, and like, you know, and be like, I need to get this process ironed out. And I'll stare at it for like weeks, and it'll stress me out until I finally like force myself to walk through it on a whiteboard or whatever. But after you come to terms with the fact that you might actually be the visionary person who comes up with a million ideas and has no idea how to actually sort them all out. I think it's figuring out how to outsource that stuff, right? It's, you know, understanding how to find a VA or utilize Fiverr or Freelancer or get an assistant or calendar or whatever that tool is, or those tools, to organize all that stuff around you so that you can lean into the vision side, right? Like give yourself time to think, give yourself time to be creative, give yourself time to lean into that. Because if you try to like hush that side of your brain and just work, and you don't do the creative stuff.
I think the biggest challenge, and Mike and I had this conversation. I was telling I was bitching to Mike earlier today. I was like, I got to figure out how to delegate better. Like you said, how do you offload that stuff so that you can do what you're good at, or what is like important to you in your business at that point in time? It's just not as easy as it's harder, you know, to do than it is to say.
Yeah. And I'll say for you, Dan, you're definitely a bit more of an implementer role than I am. I would say I definitely lean more on like a visionary role, because I'm with you on that, Dave, where I have like a bunch of ideas, and it's like finding that person. And Dan knows, like every couple weeks, Dan, I come and I'm like, oh yeah, we have like someone starting up that's going to do like video editing now. And Dan's like, okay, for what? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to need him here soon because where we're headed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You know? Or just like,
well, the difference too is Mike doesn't waste time procrastinating. If it's a thought, he's to the extreme of what you're saying, David, is like offload it, go.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, even if it's not the perfect person or even like the best person, I'll find someone that's capable, and then I'll throw it at them. And then if it sucks, I'll just be like, next person. And then we'll just basically go through, and it becomes a big vicious cycle.
Well, since you mentioned procrastination, that's actually a great thing to pay attention to. in
Who Not How,
Dan
yeah.
Sullivan's book Who, or Who Not How. Yeah, he talks about that, and that was like probably my best favorite nugget out of that book was, when he says like pay attention to the procrastination, because if you procrastinate something, that is your mind's way of telling you that either you're not good at it or you don't like it, and therefore you should outsource. And I had never thought about it from that frame, so I would like push stuff off on my calendar or push stuff off on whatever, and just be like,
Absolutely.
As soon as I started to think that way, I'm like, oh, because my biggest problem was just that I didn't like realize what needed it. Like at one point I was trying to tell my assistant, like, look, if you see something, just take it from me, because I don't know what to give you. Like, I see that you're bored, but I don't know what.
Love that
like,
you're going through that,
like,
because that's
I have
what
no
I
idea
go
what
through.
to give you.
Yep.
And so that finally became my trigger.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, and people say like what feels heavy, but you got to pay attention to what feels heavy. It's really what you do. Otherwise, you're going to miss it, because if you're like you just said, if you push it on your calendar, it's the last thing that you get to at the end of the day, and you're like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. It's probably something you should delegate.
Yeah. That's why my assistant is, by the time tomorrow that I finally go through and catch up on all this tomorrow, when I'm done with this email, my assistant will get a Loom video of how I did it, and she will be taking over my monthly bookkeeping tasks, because it is now the 9th, and I have put off what my bookkeeper has requested from me since the 1st, and I have been instructed that I have to do it tomorrow before my call with my bookkeeper, and so in that doing of it, I'm going to record how I did it.
I love that.
So that
Nice.
like, here you go,
Dan,
Rachel.
how relevant is that?
I know. I just talked to our bookkeeper for an hour before this call too.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, she's like, I need you to download all your bank statements and upload them to here, and I'm just like, and Rachel's like, just teach me how to do it, and I'm like, but it's faster to do it. She's like, yeah, but if you,
I'm right there along with you, man.
I have to do it again. I'm like,
that's so funny. Yeah, no,
I mean, it's do it at all.
Yeah, it's a hard mindset, because all of us,
Can't you just
growing
learn?
up through the Western school system, like what they teach you is if you procrastinate on it, that's like lacking discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you get into the workforce and you get into, your adult life with the same sort of mentality. And so that's why I see so many people, especially if they're new entrepreneurs, where they're like, man, I got to learn how to code. I got to learn how to do graphic design. I got to learn how to sell. I got to learn how to do all this stuff. And it's like, or you could honestly just go find people to do most of those things and go significantly faster.
Yep. And being okay with not being good at everything. That's back to the system we grew up in, is like, you don't have to be good at everything. Just be good at what feels light to you. And then you'll honestly naturally just progress and be good at that, instead of trying to be a good bookkeeper, a good note taker, a good this, a good that. Like, who gives a shit about that stuff if that's not what is alignment with what you can do?
Exactly. So cool. Well, let's hear about your community and all the stuff you're doing over there, because I know you're doing some really awesome things. I've been seeing your posts on social.
We try. We're the largest military real estate investing community out there, and we just try to help service members and vets figure out how to not work forever, right? I noticed my last command, my last command, I was at a really high level Marine Corps command, the highest level command on the West Coast. We ran basically the first Marine. Anyway, I saw a lot of people retiring after 20, 30, 40 years in the military and then getting another government job. And a lot of them, it was because they weren't able to actually like retire at the level of comfort that they wanted. It wasn't like they just wanted to go get a job again. I was like, man,
right.
That's kind of crummy. Like you need like 30 years of service and like full military retirement plus
healthcare,
disability
all that stuff,
benefits, plus like you're and like you're.
Well, and it's not that it was just 30 years. It's like 30 years of 100-hour weeks. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, right?
I mean, and there's people that aren't able to make it, but I mean, there's a whole subset of people too that go into the gutter with that, right? And they become homeless, and that's such a huge problem just in the country in general. And you're basically trying to be the antithesis of that and saying, not only will you avoid being homeless, which is a big problem, but these people can actually live a life of prosperity and wealth once they get through all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, like just think if you like just even just once in there, if you had used the VA loan to house hack it like year 4, you know, now like you get to year 20 and you've got a mortgage with 14 years left on it that's been cash flowing for half the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that
Like,
primarily the focus of your group is utilizing the government and military services provided like effectively, or is it just like, you know, that's the archetype of people that are in there so they all sort of feel comfortable around each other?
Yeah, that's probably more the definition. So, I mean, 80% of what I talk about is applicable to anybody. We do definitely touch on, you know, specific stuff like the thrift savings plan, but that's the 401k. That's applicable to anybody. It's just branded as the military one. You know, the VA loan is not a whole lot different from the FHA. Some nuances. But it's just, you know, the whole brand started as me documenting my journey out of the military into real estate. And so a lot of the community was built that way, and the niche is just stuck. So that's really just kind of where I leaned into, and it seems to work. People seem to like it, and I think it does a really good job of facilitating community. So it makes it easy to plus, and this is just more of a selfish thing for me.
Exactly.
And I don't have to deal with worrying about what I say. In fact, I have actually learned that the more like blunt or brutally honest that I am, and like if I call people out for their bullshit in the group, they love it. Like the group just eats that stuff up, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I got to be like tell this guy exactly what I thought of his stupid spammy comment. And
well, I think if you establish that as your persona pretty early on too, so you usually do okay, because like, you know, now if somebody came in and said like you need to be woke, it's like you haven't been that way for the entire time. Like really a lot of people that for you now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like yeah, exactly. You gotta have that hard ass mentality. I mean, look at some of those other sort of guys like Yako Willink, right? You know, that dude never has to worry about being woke because he's been like the hard ass military.
People just accept him for who he is.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes life so much easier.
If I ever get on his podcast, I should like start my intro and then like halfway through. Just
what you should do is challenge him publicly to a jiu-jitsu match. That's what you should do.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That would be perfect. Considering that I have never done jiu-jitsu,
he's a mean, tough-looking guy.
Yeah. Hey, if it got me on his podcast, I would be all for it.
There you go.
Well, I'll see if I can reach out to some
him
folks.
on my
I might
podcast,
know some people.
Actually.
But not really.
Yeah, right. Get him on your podcast though, and he'll tell every story just like he's like on a battlefield. That's a crazy flame about how he talks. He's always like, "Well, when I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is I go downstairs and I do 100 pull-ups with a towel on my stairs." You know, it's just
What?
It is 2:30 a.m.
It's pretty intense.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So
he's nuts.
Cool.
I love it.
Right on. Well, you do a lot of good stuff though, and I think that's definitely a really awesome gap that you're filling there. So, but so as we sort of start to wind down here, I want to get into our final questions, which I'm sure you have some good answers to, especially on the first one, which is always the group favorite. I mean, I know your background a little bit.
Yeah, you got a colorful background. We'll see.
Yeah. But what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be good story, bad story. No limits here.
Man, I mean, I've been in a lawsuit for like almost 4 years. I've got the judgment won, and we're at the spot where he's appealed but didn't bond the cash for the appeal, so he can't stop the auction of the building. So the auction is scheduled. So it's a really weird situation where I've got a $220,000. Well, I probably shouldn't go.
It's active.
Too much more
details.
Yeah. In theory, by the time this goes live, it will not be active anymore, either through a building being auctioned or him bonding the money, and then it will be in an official appeals process. I've done that. Most of my really crazy stories, other than that, just kind of revolve around like very interesting dead tenant stories. I seem to have a lot of. I've actually been joking probably not a good thing to joke about and not a good situation to have to joke about. But I told my property manager the other day, I was like, if I ever wanted to be a serial killer, I could probably just start putting people like in my apartment buildings and like they would just assume that it was just another tenant. Like it would just be just like normal. Like I almost tweeted the other day. I was like, real estate influencers. If I was to, from like a branding perspective, if I was to start claiming the title King of Dead Tenants, would that be like a good thing for branding purposes or like a bad? Because like, dude, I've had like the gauntlet and it is so bad. And they're all like just weird situations. So like just the quick down and dirty. Like I've had somebody pass away who had no relatives and like they passed away like within the first week of the month. So they had paid rent.
Nice.
And nobody noticed until they didn't pay rent the next month in like an August. So it was a mess, like $5,000 worth of cleanup and industrial hygiene and like stripped the room and, whatever. But because there was no family, we had to handle cremation. We had to store their stuff in a storage unit for 90 days, waiting to see if anyone claimed it before we could throw it away. We took over a building, and the week we took over the building, someone decided that the best way to move out of said building was to move out by swallowing a 12 gauge.
Oh my God.
We had somebody drown in our hotel pool. Like we've had some just ridiculous things happen that I'm just like,
no,
like my property manager will call me and I'm just like, dude, not again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's just like, and there's
bad
not
luck.
been foul play. And it's just,
and this is all in different
like,
properties.
What is going on?
Dang.
How do I win? And they're all different properties and all very expensive. And it's like, you can't even, like, you can't be mad, right? Because it's a terrible situation. But like every one of those situations has cost, like, no joke. It's like, and obviously like it sounds insensitive to say because it's like, it's a terrible situation, but like at the same time, like that incident cost more than the rent that was collected for the entire year prior for them.
What do we do, Mike? Because didn't we have two tenants die in the same building and they just like moved the body out and then like what happened? Like, did we? Yeah, you don't remember that? We had an apartment building and two people died, but separate times in the same apartment. I think they just drug the body out and somebody else moved in and started squatting.
Well, no, because they had their third mutual roommate that decided that she also lived there, but she wasn't on the lease, so she stayed there as a tenant in common, and then her boyfriend moved in.
God,
and she wasn't paying rent.
Yeah, I guess so. What I'm saying, I guess I'm bringing that up because we got off scot-free because we didn't have to pay anything. They just cleared the body out. The next squatter moved in. We got lucky.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Now I know the secret.
Does insurance cover stuff like that?
That's unethical. I couldn't. Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, is it worth like, it was like right at cusp of deductible on most of them, and is it really worth the claim?
This is
how many
true.
dead people are you going to claim before they're going to start asking questions? You've claimed 7 dead people.
We need to adjust your deductible. Something about the paint that you're using isn't right.
Yeah. Get 3. You only get 3 free cremations here.
Yeah, right.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh. Man. Yeah, that's brutal. We haven't had too many of those, but that makes it super challenging. But I mean, when you're dealing with people's lives, I mean, it's bound to happen after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
Oh man, that's crazy. So, all right. So second question, what is a piece of advice you would give to a new investor, to, I guess, either a new investor looking to get started or to a small time investor looking to level up their business?
Yeah, I mean, everyone hears the old cliche about network being your net worth, but I think I would just spin it to say, be careful who you take advice from, right? They might have your best interest in heart, but you need to filter the advice that you receive through the lens of, has this person achieved what I want to achieve? Do they live the life that I want to live? And the best example that I can come up with for that is your parents love you and they probably want the best for you. But if they've never bought a house, then you should probably listen to somebody who buys a lot of houses when it comes to real estate, and listen to your parents a little bit less.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so true. What a great, I mean, that's a great spin on that.
If they love you.
Yeah. Find mentors of people that actually know what they're doing.
Seriously.
And not the people that you necessarily value.
Yeah, because you might value certain people's opinions, just maybe not in buying houses or where you want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like your mom loves you, and that's great. But if you want to learn how to be an MMA fighter,
unless your mom's a badass and she's Ronda Rousey,
fights, not your mom. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe, you know, you never know.
No,
but
I mean, that's super valid advice, and that's something that we've definitely preached as well. And you know, and that can be different, like you said, in every part of life too, whether that's real estate, whether that's, you know, MMA fighting, whether that's personal finance, whether that's relationships, whatever. You know, don't go to the divorcee for marriage advice. You know, it's like it's just going to end poorly in general. But awesome. So right on, David, last question. Where can people find you and follow along with what you're doing and potentially reach out to you if they would like to?
Yeah, the best spot to reach out to me directly if you want, you know, a response from me personally is on Instagram at From Military to Millionaire. If you want to get connected everywhere, the website From Military to Millionaire, or just Google Military Millionaire and I'll pop right up. And then the web or the Facebook community is probably the most engaging, and that's same thing. Military Millionaire, From Military to Millionaire, whatever. All platforms are all branded similarly enough that you'll find them all.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, David. We appreciate it. You know, you've definitely, I would say you've reached the point where you're kind of living the dream. You're not working super crazy hours, but you know, you're doing your thing, and you're you know, continuing to make traction. You're changing people's lives. So good for you, man.
I love it.
But awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a 5-star review and share it with anybody who might find David interesting, or who might find it's funny just to listen to 3 grown men talk about how you poop in a Missle silo.
I was going to say, damn it.
But aside from that, guys, go and check out David at Military to Millionaire on pretty much every possible platform. Aside from that, thanks so much, guys, and talk to you next week.
See you.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.